Ignition sequence start. All engines are running.
We have taken tremendous steps.
We choose to go to the moon before this decade is out.
We have achieved the earth-shaking, the breathtaking, the groundbreaking,
One small step for man,
and left a mark in the heavens. Our successes build one upon another and amplify what is possible.
The dawn of Orion.
It's time we take the next great leap. We're building the next chapter of American exploration, returning to the moon to stay, so we can go beyond to Mars, to expand what's possible and further our understanding. The architecture for these missions is already taking shape. We will go with new systems, bold designs, and a sustainable mission. You can hear it, taste it, touch it. We are going. We are training, testing, pressing our pioneering spirit into every component, defining our resolve with every line of code, and securing our success with every welcomed partnership. This is not hypothetical. This is not about flags and footprints. This is about sustainable science and feeding forward the advance of the human spirit. Because we are the pioneers, the star sailors, the thinkers, the visionaries, the doers. And because we stand on the shoulders of giants to go farther than humanity has ever been, we will add our names to the rolls of the greatest adventurers in history. Every day, every mission, we advance this calling. We are NASA. And after 60 years, we're just getting started.
Good afternoon from here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. You're getting a look at the balcony view from the Mission Control Center in Korolyov on the outskirts of Moscow, Russia. Teams there are looking out for the launch of Progress coming up here in just under 14 minutes. Progress is currently sitting on top of a Soyuz launch vehicle on Site 1 of the Baikonur Cosmodrome. Currently noon here in Houston, Texas, just midnight over in Baikonur. It's a cool night over there, about 22 degrees Fahrenheit, just under -5 centigrade, a bit brisk, but a clear night for a launch. Here's a view of the pad right now live. A bit dark, but soon will be lighting up soon as the engines fire and it begins its 8-minute 45-second climb into space to meet up with the International Space Station. Space Station now is currently 250 statute miles over Central Africa on a northeasterly course. In about 13 minutes, probably closer to 12 and a half at this point, it'll be over southern Kazakhstan. At the time of launch progress, on top of the Soyuz booster, will begin its 2-day journey to catch up to the International Space Station and dock to the aft end, or the back end, of the Zvezda service module at the very back of the International Space Station. All teams here in Houston are go. We just did a go, no-go poll. All the systems for the International Space Station are set, and we're handing it over to the teams over in Mission Control Moscow. We're now just under 12 minutes away from launch. Inside Progress, 3 tons of cargo, fuel, and consumables inside, including some experiments, some hardware, as well as food. We're looking at a liftoff time just after 12:14 Central Time today, just after midnight Baikonur time. International Space Station just about to cross over Egypt. In the meantime, on board is the Expedition 57 crew, led by Commander Alexander Gerst of the European Space Agency. He's on board with Serena Aunen-Chancellor of NASA and Sergei Prokopyev of Roscosmos. A busy schedule for spaceflight began just 2 days ago. On Wednesday, November 14th, Progress was rolled out by rail to Site 1 on the Baikonur Cosmodrome, where it was propped up and now currently stands, ready to take 3 tons of cargo to the International Space Station. As you can see, beautiful clear skies during the setup, and that continues even tonight. They're looking at a clear night, a little bit of wind, but nothing that the Progress cannot handle. Again, teams here did a go, no-go poll, and everything is looking good for an on-time launch today. As I mentioned before, this is going to be a busy few days for spaceflight, starting today with a launch of the Progress vehicle on top of the Soyuz booster to the International Space Station coming up here in just under 10 minutes. That'll kick off a lot of busy activity over the next few days. Tomorrow, in the wee hours here Central Time, about 3:01 a.m., will be the launch of the Cygnus cargo craft on top of the Antares rocket from the Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia, carrying 7,400 pounds of food, fuel, and supplies to the International Space Station. Both vehicles will make their way to the orbiting complex, with Progress docking on Sunday, looking for a docking time around 1:30 p.m. Central Time. Just about 15 hours later, Cygnus will dock to the Unity module, the nadir port, or the Earth-facing side, where it will take its 7,400 pounds of cargo to the space station, looking at a time of 4:20 a.m. Central Time for berthing and capture. It is a fairly routine schedule as we count down to the launch time of 12:14 p.m. Central Time here for a launch of the Progress vehicle, sitting on the pad at Site 1 of the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. There are a few key steps once they initiate the command to start. Once the automatic sequence begins, about 4 minutes before launch, the fuel lines and other elements of the rocket will purge with nitrogen to basically fireproof them, removing vapors and fuel and oxidizer. After that, they'll begin the draining of some of the fuel tanks to make sure that the proper levels are inside the vehicle and getting ready for launch there, exactly the right amount. Fuel and oxidizer tanks will then be pressurized to optimize the fuel flow. And then they will, once they switch to internal power, it will begin, they'll cut the fuel feeds and begin to, the umbilical arms that you see holding up the Progress right now will disconnect from the vehicle. First, the upper one that you see close to the top fairing there, and then there's another second lower umbilical that disconnects just about 15 seconds before launch.
Минутная готовность первый. Минутная готовность принял. 20. Минутная готовность принял. 30. Минутная готовность принял. 60. Минутную готовность принял. 70. Доклад руководителя работ принял. К 60-му сбросу объекта. И сбросу объекта.
Nice close-up shot as we're looking at the Soyuz booster. On top is the Progress vehicle, 3 tons of cargo inside, including a lot of consumables. We're now closing in on 5 minutes just until launch. Just under 4 minutes before launch, fuel lines and other elements of the rocket engines are purged with nitrogen to fireproof them. One of the many milestones here before we begin launch at 12:14 p.m. Central Time. The vehicle is now being drained of some of the extra fuel to get that perfect amount right before launch. 3 minutes before launch. Next cue is the pressurization of fuel and oxidizer tanks. One minute 45 seconds until the scheduled launch time. We're now 1 minute away from launch. "30 seconds to launch. The upper umbilical has been retracted. Next, about the middle of the rocket, you'll see that second umbilical retract. Vehicle will switch to internal power. Start of the initiation sequence. Engines are throttling up. And liftoff. Liftoff of the Progress 71 vehicle on its way to carry 3 tons of supplies to the International Space Station. Everything looking nominal so far. Vehicle is stable. One minute into the flight. Progress is 5.6 miles in altitude. Vehicle's traveling at 1,100 miles per hour. First stage burns for about 1 minute 58 seconds before the 4 strap-on boosters and main engine are separated. Confirmation of the first stage separation. 4 strap-on boosters have been jettisoned. Progress and Soyuz are 29 miles downrange. Second stage will burn until about 4 minutes 47 seconds. Just before that, you'll see the shroud at the top of the vehicle jettison and reveal the progress inside. Confirmation of shroud jettison. All control systems are reported nominal. Flight looking good so far. Again, about another minute and a half of this stage burning. There's a third stage after that that burns until 8 minutes 45 seconds into the flight. Currently 3.5 minutes into flight now. All systems are reported nominal. Systems nominal vehicle is stabilized. Everything looking good so far. Second stage is nominal. Another 30 seconds of burn before second stage separation. Still looking good up through the last leg of the second stage. Confirmation of second stage separation. Third stage is now lit and will burn until 8 minutes 45 seconds into the flight. Vehicle is now about 300 miles downrange. Catching up with the International Space Station, which is about 253 statute miles, just over northern Mongolia. Third stage is still looking good so far. We have another 3 minutes of burn. Everything's still looking good. Everything's looking good. Yaw, pitch, roll, position. Vehicle is pointing the way it needs to go. Have another 2.5 minutes of this burn. Another 2 minutes of burn. Vehicle is still stabilized. Another 1 minute of burn on this third stage before it separates. Still looking good, another 30 seconds until this stage is complete. Once it is, it'll separate from the Soyuz. The navigational antenna and solar arrays will deploy to start collecting power and receive communication. About 20 more seconds of burn. We have confirmed third stage separation. Now just waiting for navigational antenna and solar array deployment. Solar arrays and navigational antennas deployed, everything looking good. So we have confirmed deployment of the solar arrays and navigational antennas of the Progress. A perfect 8-minute 45-second flight on a brisk day over in Baikonur, just past midnight their time, 12:24 now here p.m. Central Time after 10 minutes ago. Successful launch of the Progress on top of a Soyuz booster from Site 1 in Baikonur, Kazakhstan. Here's a replay of the launch. You can see that umbilical tower retracted. Throttles to full thrust, and everything was countdown on time. 3 tons of cargo inside, including propellant, some air, some water, and of course lots of cargo, including some food for the crew on board. You can see this replay of the Soyuz booster and the first stage engine with the 4 strap-on boosters lighting up the sky, the clear night sky that was in Baikonur, Kazakhstan. November 17th their time, November 16th our time. International Space Station is 253 statute miles above the Earth now. Over the eastern border of Mongolia. We're starting to get some telemetry from the Progress itself. We're getting good communication and power from the vehicle. Here's a display there. Just over 2 days from now, you'll see this view once again, but for the docking of Progress to the International Space Station. Right in between those crosshairs there, you'll see the outline of the orbiting complex as it begins its approach to deliver the 3 tons of cargo inside. Again, this is not the only vehicle that is traveling to the International Space Station, or at least will be. Tomorrow in the wee hours here Central Time, 3:01 a.m. Central Time, Cygnus is set to lift off on top of an Antares rocket from the Northrop Grumman facility. From the Northrop Grumman teams will watch the launch from Wallops, Virginia. or the Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. On board is 7,400 pounds of cargo. The two, this Progress here, 71P, and the SS John Young, named after the late astronaut, Apollo, Gemini, and Shuttle astronaut. Both are set to arrive just about 15 hours apart. First, the 71P arriving on Sunday, looking for an arrival around 1:30 p.m. Central Time. This Sunday, the 18th. On Monday, the 19th, following closely will be the Cygnus and the 7,400 pounds of cargo inside, closer to the early morning, about 4:20 a.m. Central Time. Teams here in Mission Control Houston as well as Moscow reporting good telemetry. The flight of Progress looking good after a successful launch at 12 on time at 12:14 p.m. Central Time today. Congratulations to the teams over in Moscow and of course here in Houston for a successful launch. And the crew on board for Expedition 57 on board the International Space Station, Alexander Gerst, Serena Aunen-Chancellor, and Sergei Prokopyev as they anxiously await the cargo inside. A great launch from teams around the world, and again 2 more days until the vehicle actually arrives to the International Space Station. That'll wrap up our coverage for Progress. This is Mission Control Houston.